Welcome to AZ-802, Practice Exam Set 11. This capstone uses 10 real-world hybrid scenario packets with 3 linked questions each. Each packet scenario is read once. Keep that context in mind, as 3 questions add new evidence. After every set of choices, you will have 7 silent seconds to lock in your answer before the reveal. Packet 1. Branch Arc Onboarding, Proxy, DCR, and Updates. Contoso operates 25 Windows Server 2022 and 2025 machines in a branch office behind a corporate proxy. All machines were onboarded to Azure Arc, AZ-CM agent reports connected, and the proxy permits the documented Arc and Azure Monitor endpoints. The team intends to collect Windows events through AMA/DCR and govern operating system updates through Azure Update Manager. Question 1. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. No branch events appear in the target log analytics workspace. The DCR exists, but the team has not yet established whether the machine-side collection path is complete. Which evidence should the engineer inspect first to isolate the missing layer without changing server state? Option A. The AMA extension provisioning state and the DCR association on one affected Arc machine. Option B. The connected machine agent connectivity result only. Option C. The update manager patch history for the branch. Option D. The recurrent settings of a maintenance configuration. The correct answer is A, the AMA extension provisioning state and the DCR association on one affected Arc machine. AMA must be installed and healthy, and a DCRA must link the resource to the DCR. Inspecting those 2 states isolates the monitoring path while preserving the already proven Arc connectivity layer. Exam clue. For missing AMA telemetry, isolate agent health and the per-resource DCR association before changing Arc onboarding or patch settings. Question 2. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q001 shows that the intended DCR association already exists, but the Azure Monitor agent extension is absent on the affected machines. What is the smallest safe corrective action? Option A. Reinstall the connected machine agent and recreate every Arc resource. Option B. Deploy the supported Azure Monitor agent extension to the affected Arc machines and verify successful provisioning. Option C. Create a second DCR with the same event channels and destination. Option D. Run an update manager on-demand assessment. The correct answer is B. Deploy the supported Azure Monitor agent extension to the affected Arc machines and verify successful provisioning. The DCRA already exists and Arc connectivity is healthy, so the proven missing component is AMA. Deploying and verifying that extension corrects the smallest demonstrated gap. Exam clue. Correct the missing component established by isolation. Do not rebuild a healthy control plane or duplicate its configuration. Question 3. Prevent or verify. Choose 2 answers. New evidence. AMA now provisions successfully, and the expected branch events arrive in log analytics. The team must make monitoring deployment repeatable for future branch servers and place all current and future tagged branch servers into a controlled monthly update schedule. Which 2 controls satisfy the distinct monitoring and update governance requirements? Choose 2. Option A. Use an Azure policy-based AMA/DCR deployment or association pattern for machines in the intended scope, and monitor compliance. Option B. Create an Azure Update Manager maintenance configuration with the required update criteria, window, and dynamic scope for the branch servers. Option C. Rerun AZ-CM Agent Connect monthly on every server. Option D. Create duplicate DCRs for each branch server to prove redundancy. Option E. Use the successful log analytics query as the patch schedule. The correct answer is A. Use an Azure policy-based AMA/DCR deployment or association pattern for machines in the intended scope and monitor compliance. B. Create an Azure Update Manager maintenance configuration with the required update criteria, window, and dynamic scope for the branch servers. Monitoring standardization and update scheduling are separate controls. Policy can deploy or maintain the AMA/DCR association pattern at scale, while an Update Manager maintenance configuration governs machine scope, schedule, update criteria, and restart behavior. Exam clue. When the stem requires 2 Azure services, select one durable control for telemetry configuration and another for patch scheduling. Do not collapse them into one mechanism. Packet 2. AD replication, DNS, time, Kerberos, and secure channel. Contoso has a multi-site ADDS forest with Windows Server 2022 domain controllers. A branch DC cannot replicate from a hub DC. The source DC GUID CNAME resolves to the expected host. Network ports are reachable, and measured time offset is under 1 minute. RepAdmin reports 800-90322. The target principal name is incorrect. Question 4. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. No corrective action has been taken. Which evidence should be inspected next to distinguish an SPN/name to IP problem from a broader replication topology failure? Option A. Delete and regenerate every NTDS connection object. Option B. Reset the branch DC computer account immediately. Option C. Run dcdiag/test:check security error and query SPN ownership for the source DC while confirming its name to IP mapping. Option D. Force synchronization of every naming context. The correct answer is C. Run dcdiag/test:check security error and query SPN ownership for the source DC while confirming its name to IP mapping. The error, healthy time, reachable ports, and correct GUID CNAME narrow isolation to Kerberos target name evidence. SPN ownership and name to IP mapping can distinguish duplicate or stale identity data without changing directory state. Exam clue. For 0x800-90322, after DNS reachability and time are cleared, inspect target name resolution and SPN ownership before resetting accounts or topology. Question 5. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q004 finds the hub DC LDAP SPN registered on a retired server account. The correct hub DC account has its expected remaining SPNs. What is the smallest safe correction? Option A. Reset every domain controller computer account password. Option B. Delete the _MSDCS zone and allow all records to regenerate. Option C. Rebuild the branch DC. Option D. Remove the confirmed duplicate LDAP SPN from the retired account. Verify the SPN on the hub DC account, and retry replication. The correct answer is D. Remove the confirmed duplicate LDAP SPN from the retired account. Verify the SPN on the hub DC account, and retry replication. The evidence identifies one duplicate SPN ownership error. Removing only that incorrect registration and validating the correct owner addresses the proven Kerberos target without broad identity, DNS, or server changes. Exam clue. Correct the identity object proven wrong. Do not reset every dependency around it. Question 6. Prevent or verify. Choose 2 answers. New evidence. The duplicate SPN is removed and replication succeeds. The team wants durable detection plus recurring end-to-end verification. Which two controls satisfy those distinct goals? Choose 2. Option A, reset all DC secure channels quarterly. Option B, recreate DC locator records weekly. Option C, alert on relevant directory service replication failures and Kerberos target name errors. Option D, run scheduled rep admin health reporting and periodic SPN/security checks, such as DC diag/test: check security error. Option E, disable Kerberos for inter-site replication. The correct answer is C, alert on relevant directory service replication failures and Kerberos target name errors. D, run scheduled rep admin health reporting and periodic SPN/security checks, such as DC diag/test: check security error. Event monitoring detects recurrence, while scheduled replication and security checks verify the dependency chain. Destructive resets and protocol workarounds are not preventative controls. Exam clue: pair signal-based detection with a recurring mechanism check. Do not schedule corrective actions as prevention. Packet 3. Azure File Sync migration and identity permissions. Contoso is migrating a departmental file server to Azure Files with Azure File Sync. One server endpoint and one cloud endpoint report healthy synchronization. Cloud tiering is enabled. Users report periodic delays when opening older tiered files, while recently used files open normally. Question 7. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. The team has not changed tiering or backup settings. Which evidence most directly isolates whether an application is driving excessive recalls? Option A, recall size or throughput by application together with cloud tiering recall events and cache hit behavior. Option B, the Azure file share quota only. Option C, the count of users in the department. Option D, the date the stored sync service was created. The correct answer is A, recall size or throughput by application together with cloud tiering recall events and cache hit behavior. Per application recall metrics and tiering events show whether a scanner or backup process is repeatedly recalling tiered data. Share quota and inventory facts do not isolate recall behavior. Exam clue: when tiered files are slow, distinguish sync failure from application-driven recall using recall telemetry, not generic capacity facts. Question 8, correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q007 shows that the legacy on-premises backup job traverses the server endpoint nightly and causes most large recalls. Azure Files is not yet protected by a cloud endpoint backup policy. What is the smallest safe correction that removes the demonstrated recall source while preserving recovery coverage? Option A, disable Azure File Sync and copy all data back to the branch. Option B, move protection to a supported Azure File Share backup policy for the cloud endpoint, validate recovery points, and stop the legacy job from scanning the tiered server endpoint. Option C, increase the server volume and keep the same backup scan. Option D, delete and recreate the sync group. The correct answer is B, move protection to a supported Azure File Share backup policy for the cloud endpoint, validate recovery points, and stop the legacy job from scanning the tiered server endpoint. Backing up the cloud endpoint avoids recalling tiered files through the server endpoint and preserves a recoverable copy when configured and validated. The other actions do not address the identified scanner behavior safely. Exam clue. For Azure File Sync, avoid backup designs that traverse and recall the tiered namespace. Protect the cloud endpoint and validate restore. Question 9. Prevent or verify. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Recall latency is normalized, and Azure Files recovery points are validated. The business now permits direct Azure Files access for a pilot group, while existing users continue through the server endpoint. Which governance step best verifies that both access paths enforce the intended authorization boundary? Option A. Grant the storage sync service account the same role as every user. Option B. Replace all NTFS ACLs with Azure Resource Group Contributor. Option C. Define the Azure Files identity-based share-level permissions for direct access. Preserve the required NTFS ACLs, and test effective access with representative pilot and denied identities. Option D. Assume healthy sync proves authorization is correct. The correct answer is C. Define the Azure Files identity-based share-level permissions for direct access. Preserve the required NTFS ACLs, and test effective access with representative pilot and denied identities. Direct Azure Files access combines share-level authorization with file/directory ACLs, while server endpoint access continues to depend on Windows share and NTFS controls. Representative access tests verify the designed boundary. Exam clue. Separate control plane roles, share-level data access, and NTFS ACLs. Then test effective rights on each access path. Packet 4. Hyper-V cluster performance and availability. Contosa runs a 4-node Windows Server 2022 Hyper-V failover cluster with sandback CSVs. Every node can see each required CSV. MPIO paths are healthy, and VMs remain online. Users report slow live migrations and intermittent storage latency during migration windows. Question 10. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. No network or storage changes have been made. Which evidence set should be compared first to isolate whether shared network contention correlates with the migration and latency spikes? Option A. Only total SAN capacity. Option B. Only VM memory demand. Option C. The number of cluster names registered in DNS. Option D. Live migration network utilization, network role configuration, QoS or bandwidth settings, and storage latency counters over the same interval. The correct answer is D. Live migration network utilization, network role configuration, QoS or bandwidth settings, and storage latency counters over the same interval. Time-correlated network role, utilization, bandwidth/QoS, and storage latency evidence can show whether migration traffic is contending with management or storage paths. Capacity and unrelated inventory do not isolate the timing. Exam clue. Correlate the suspected traffic path with latency over the same time window before changing RDMA, teaming, storage, or placement. Question 11. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q010 shows that live migration traffic shares one physical path with management and storage traffic, and consumes the path during each latency spike. The NICs do not support RDMA. What is the smallest safe correction? Option A. Separate or prioritize live migration traffic using supported network roles and QoS/bandwidth controls, then validate migration and storage latency. Option B. Enable RDMA in software on the unsupported NICs. Option C. Add disks to every CSV. Option D. Move every VM permanently to one node. The correct answer is A. Separate or prioritize live migration traffic using supported network roles and QoS/bandwidth controls, then validate migration and storage latency. The evidence proves traffic contention and states that RDMA is unsupported. Supported traffic separation, or QoS, addresses the demonstrated path without unrelated storage or placement changes. Exam clue. Do not prescribe RGMA merely because migration is slow. First, honor hardware support and correct the proven traffic boundary. Question 12. Prevent or verify? Choose 2 answers. New evidence. After traffic separation and QoS changes, migration duration and CSV latency return to baseline. The team wants durable detection of network/storage drift and evidence that placement remains within node and CSV capacity. Which 2 controls meet those goals? Choose 2. Option A. Schedule recurring failover cluster validation and alert on new network or storage findings. Option B. Disable live migration outside maintenance windows. Option C. Add unused CSVs solely to increase object count. Option D. Archive 1 successful migration result and stop monitoring. Option E. Collect and alert on node, migration network, and CSV capacity performance baselines, and use the evidence in the VM placement runbook. The correct answer is A. Schedule recurring failover cluster validation and alert on new network or storage findings. E. Collect and alert on node, migration network, and CSV capacity performance baselines, and use the evidence in the VM placement runbook. Recurring validation detects configuration drift, while monitored capacity/performance baselines make placement decisions evidence-based. One-time tests and arbitrary restrictions do not provide ongoing verification. Exam clue. Use one control to detect cluster configuration drift and another to preserve capacity evidence for placement decisions. Packet 5. Ransomware containment and directory recovery. Contoso experienced ransomware involving privileged administrative workstations. The affected forest is isolated. All production domain controllers are offline, but an offline system state backup from before the compromise is available and mounted for controlled inspection. Windows Labs had been configured to back up encrypted DSRM passwords to ADDS. Question 13. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. No restore has begun. The recovery team must determine whether the mounted backup contains a usable DSRM credential and who was authorized to decrypt it. Which evidence should be inspected first without starting a domain controller or altering the backup? Option A. Reset all privileged account passwords in the offline database. Option B. Query the mounted AD database for the Windows Labs DSRM password record, source, timestamp, and authorized decryptor. Option C. Start the restored domain controller on the production network. Option D. Use the most recent Azure Arc Heartbeat as proof of directory recoverability. The correct answer is B. Query the mounted AD database for the Windows Labs DSRM password record, source, timestamp, and authorized decryptor. The mounted backup can be queried for the stored Windows Labs DSRM record and its authorization metadata. This establishes whether the credential needed for controlled recovery exists without modifying the backup or exposing production. Exam clue. Before AD recovery, establish the credential and decryptor authority from the known good directory backup, not from live production state. Question 14, correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q013 confirms the backup contains an encrypted DSRM password record and identifies the authorized decryptor. The database is mounted on a controlled recovery host that can query it over a dedicated LDAP port. What is the smallest supported action to retrieve the password needed for the recovery procedure? Option A. Change the DSRM password directly in the mounted database. Option B. Bring an untrusted production DC online to query the password. Option C. Use getLapse80 password against the mounted backup's LDAP port with an authorized identity, then protect the recovered credential according to the runbook. Option D. delete the encrypted lapse attribute and rely on a default DSRM password. The correct answer is C. Use getLapseAdPassword against the mounted backup's LDAP port with an authorized identity, then protect the recovered credential according to the runbook. Windows Lapse supports querying passwords stored in a mounted AD backup by specifying the LDAP port. This retrieves the existing authorized credential without editing the backup or reconnecting a potentially compromised DC. Exam clue. When the known good AD database is mounted, use the documented lapse query path and authorized decryptor, rather than modifying the backup. Question 15. Prevent or verify? Choose the best answer. New evidence. The DSRM credential is retrieved, the forced recovery runbook is executed in an isolated recovery network, and a recovered domain controller starts successfully. Which validation best proves directory recovery and future credential management readiness? Option A. Run an anti-malware quick scan only. Option B. Confirm only that the domain controller responds to ping. Option C. Reconnect production clients before testing authentication or sysvol. Option D. Verify ADDS and DNS health, sysvol and netlogon sharing, test authentication, Windows lapse policy processing, and successful DSRM password backup retrieval in the isolated environment. Record results and timings. The correct answer is D. Verify ADDS and DNS health, sysvol and netlogon sharing, test authentication, Windows lapse policy processing, and successful DSRM password backup retrieval in the isolated environment. Record results and timings. Service level checks prove that directory dependencies function, while lapse processing and retrieval prove the credential lifecycle is restored. Isolation and recorded timing preserve the recovery boundary and RTO evidence. Exam clue. A recovered DC is not proven by boot or ping. Validate directory dependencies and the credential lifecycle inside isolation. Packet 6. Storage Replica Disaster Recovery. Contoso maintains a server-to-server storage replica partnership between two Windows Server 2022 data center machines, SR SRv01 in the primary site and SR SRv02 in the DR site, protecting a critical file share volume. Get SR Partnership and Get SR Group report the partnership as healthy, with replication direction from SR SRv01 to SR SRv02. Initial block copy has completed, with no errors logged in the Microsoft Windows Storage Replica channel. Question 16. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Application performance on the primary volume has degraded, but partnership health and replication direction remain unchanged per Get SR Partnership. Which evidence should the engineer inspect first to isolate whether the replication mode or network link conditions are contributing to the performance impact without changing the partnership or volumes? Option A. The replication mode value from Get SR Group and measured round-trip latency from storage replica performance counters or test SR topology output. Option B. Only the destination volume mount state on SR SRv02. Option C. The number of bytes remaining in the replication backlog only. Option D. Event ID 5015 entries on the destination server only. The correct answer is A. The replication mode value from Get SR Group and measured round-trip latency from storage replica performance counters or test SRT topology output. Replication mode, synchronous versus asynchronous, and measured link latency directly determine whether the current configuration matches documented synchronous requirements, under 5 milliseconds RTT, or is causing the observed performance impact. These facts are isolated from partnership health/direction and from backlog or destination state. Exam clue. For storage replica performance issues, first confirm replication mode and actual link latency against the synchronous threshold before examining backlog or destination volume state. Question 17. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q016 established that the partnership is running in synchronous mode over a link whose measured latency exceeds the documented 5 millisecond RTT threshold, producing a growing replication backlog while the destination volume remains dismounted and read-only. What is the smallest safe corrective action that addresses the proven mismatch without resetting the partnership or making the destination writable? Option A. Run SetSR partnership to reverse replication direction immediately. Option B. Use SetSR partnership to change the replication mode to asynchronous while keeping the existing direction and volumes. Option C. Recreate both replication groups and volumes from scratch. Option D. Mount the destination volume read-write on SR-SRV02 to clear the backlog. The correct answer is B. Use SetSR partnership to change the replication mode to asynchronous while keeping the existing direction and volumes. Changing only the replication mode from synchronous to asynchronous on the existing healthy partnership is the smallest action that directly corrects the latency-induced backlog, while preserving direction, partnership objects, and the documented read-only state of the destination volume. Exam clue. Correct only the isolated mismatch, mode versus measured latency, with the least invasive change. Never make the destination writable or destroy the existing partnership. Question 18. Prevent or verify. Choose two answers. New evidence. The partnership now uses asynchronous mode. The team must verify failover readiness and detect any future mismatch between configured mode and measured link conditions. Which two controls satisfy those goals? Choose two. Option A. Make the destination volume permanently writable. Option B. Run test SR topology, or equivalent recurring link/throughput validation, and alert when measured conditions violate the documented design envelope. Option C. Periodically perform a documented test failover using the supported snapshot-based validation path and record application/data checks. Option D. Configure automatic failover solely from a link loss event. Option E. Treat replicated VSS snapshots on the source as the independent backup strategy. The correct answer is B. Run test SRT topology or equivalent recurring link/throughput validation and alert when measured conditions violate the documented design envelope. C. Periodically perform a documented test failover using the supported snapshot-based validation path and record application/data checks. Recurring topology/link validation detects mode-to-network drift, and controlled test failover proves the recovery procedure without converting the destination into an unmanaged writable copy. Storage Replica still does not replace independent backup. Exam clue. Pair continuous design envelope evidence with a controlled failover test. Neither replication nor snapshots alone prove recoverability. Packet 7. Multi-site DNS, DHCP, and DFS degradation. Contoso maintains a two-site Active Directory forest with Seattle, HQ, and Portland, branch. All clients receive the contoso.com DNS suffix and site local DC as primary DNS server. The \back contoso.com_DB DFS namespace has targets in both sites. Portland users report degraded or failed DFS access, while Seattle users are unaffected. Direct DNS resolution of DC and DFS names succeeds from the branch. Question 19. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. A Portland client receives the expected site local DNS server and resolves the namespace and both folder targets. However, nltest/dsgetSite reports Seattle and DFS referrals prefer the Seattle target. Which evidence should be inspected next without changing DFS or client caches? Option A. The Seattle target's free disk space only. Option B. The DFS replication staging quota only. Option C. The client IP subnet and the corresponding subnet to site mapping in AD sites and services. Option D. The number of DHCP reservations in Portland. The correct answer is C. The client IP subnet and the corresponding subnet to site mapping in AD sites and services. AD site determination uses the client IP subnet and the AD subnet to site mapping. With DNS resolution already healthy, that mapping is the decisive evidence for the unexpected site-aware referral. Exam clue. When NLTest reports the wrong site, inspect the client IP against AD subnet objects before rebuilding DFS or changing referral order. Question 20. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q019 established that the Portland subnet object is incorrectly associated with the Seattle site, causing clients to receive high-cost Seattle DFS targets. What is the smallest safe corrective action that restores correct site-aware DFS referrals? Option A. Recreate the entire DFS namespace and re-add all folder targets from scratch. Option B. Force DFSN client cache refresh on all Portland machines with GP update/force. Option C. Change the DFS namespace referral ordering to lowest cost only and disable site costing. Option D. Move the Portland subnet object to the correct Portland site in AD sites and services and verify updated DFS referral ordering. The correct answer is D. Move the Portland subnet object to the correct Portland site in AD sites and services and verify updated DFS referral ordering. The proven mechanism is the mismap subnet producing incorrect site cost. Moving the subnet object to the proper site is the minimal, reversible change that corrects referral logic without touching namespace definitions or client state. Exam clue. Correct only the proven misconfiguration in the evidence partition. Do not rebuild healthy namespace objects or apply client-side workarounds. Question 21. Prevent or verify. Choose the best answer. New evidence. After the site mapping correction, Portland clients now receive the local DFS target. To ensure the dependency chain remains healthy, authentication and time evidence must be exercised. Which verification or control provides durable assurance that the multi-site DNS, DHCP, DFS chain will not silently degrade again? Option A. Schedule a recurring test from a Portland client that validates site-aware DFS referral plus Kerberos ticket acquisition and DC time offset. Option B. Enable verbose DFSN debug logging on namespace servers and review logs weekly. Option C. Create DHCP reservations for every Portland client to permanently hardcode DNS servers. Option D. Remove site costing from the DFS namespace and rely solely on manual target priority ordering. The correct answer is A. Schedule a recurring test from a Portland client that validates site-aware DFS referral plus Kerberos ticket acquisition and DC time offset. A repeatable end-to-end validation exercising the full chain, DNS plus site mapping plus DFS referral plus authentication/time, detects future drift before user impact. This uses the authentication/time evidence partition reserved for Q3. Exam clue. Durable prevention combines a scheduled end-to-end test of the isolated mechanism with the authentication/time evidence that would surface recurrence. Packet 8, Azure VM access, monitoring, and extension failure. Contosa runs a Windows Server 2022 Azure IaaS VM with no public IP. Administrators use Azure Bastion and JIT, and the Azure VM guest agent reports ready. AMA previously sent data through an associated DCR, but telemetry and VM Insights data have stopped. This is a native Azure VM, not an Arc-enabled server. Question 22. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. The DCR still exists and no access path change is planned. Which evidence should be inspected first to isolate whether the failure is in the native VM extension layer? Option A, the Bastion subnet route table only. Option B, the AMA extension provisioning state plus its handler status and guest extension log. Option C, whether the connected machine agent is installed. Option D, the update manager maintenance window duration. The correct answer is B, the AMA extension provisioning state plus its handler status and guest extension log. The VM and access path are healthy and Arc is not involved. Native AMA extension status and logs are the authoritative evidence for extension provisioning and handler failure. Exam clue. On a native Azure VM, inspect the native extension and guest agent path. Do not switch to Arc evidence. Question 23. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q022 shows the AMA extension handler is corrupted after an interrupted automatic upgrade. The DCR association remains correct. What is the smallest safe correction? Option A, delete and recreate the VM. Option B, install the connected machine agent and use Arc extensions instead. Option C, remove and redeploy only the native AMA extension, verify successful provisioning, and leave the existing DCR association and Bastion/JIT controls unchanged. Option D, delete the DCR and open public RDP for testing. The correct answer is C, remove and redeploy only the native AMA extension, verify successful provisioning, and leave the existing DCR association and Bastion/JIT controls unchanged. The proven failure is the AMA extension handler. Reprovisioning that extension is bounded to the failed component and preserves healthy data collection and access configuration. Exam clue. Repair the failed native extension without replacing healthy VM, DCR, or secure access controls. Question 24. Prevent or verify. Choose two answers. New evidence. AMA is healthy again, and expected data reaches log analytics. The team needs durable enforcement of the monitoring configuration and early warning when data stops. Which two controls meet the requirements? Choose two. Option A, enable a public IP for external probes. Option B, install the Arc connected machine agent as a second control plane. Option C, duplicate the DCR on every VM. Option D, use an applicable Azure policy initiative to deploy or audit AMA and the required DCR association for the VM scope, with compliance reporting. Option E, create an Azure Monitor alert based on data collection freshness or missing expected heartbeat/telemetry, and test its notification path. The correct answer is D. Use an applicable Azure policy initiative to deploy or audit AMA and the required DCR association for the VM scope, with compliance reporting. E, create an Azure Monitor alert based on data collection freshness or missing expected heartbeat/telemetry and test its notification path. Policy provides repeatable configuration and compliance evidence. A freshness or heartbeat alert detects loss of the data path. Public exposure, dual control planes, and duplicate DCRs do not improve durable monitoring governance. Exam clue. Pair configuration compliance with a signal that proves data continues to arrive. Packet 9. file server modernization, and storage controls. Contoso is modernizing an NTFS file server. User home folders require FSRM quotas and file screens. A separate media/archive share uses data deduplication. Supported RDMA-capable NICs serve SMB clients, and a storage QoS policy is intended to govern the virtualized file server workload. Question 25. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Deduplication jobs report success, but the media volume saves far less capacity than forecast. Home folder quotas and SMB performance currently meet requirements. Which evidence should be reviewed first without changing the volume? Option A, the DFS namespace referral order. Option B, the number of FSRM email recipients. Option C, the SMB signing audit log only. Option D, the deduplication evaluation or usage output showing optimization eligibility, file age, file types, and savings. The correct answer is D, the deduplication evaluation or usage output showing optimization eligibility, file age, file types, and savings. Deduplication eligibility and usage evidence directly explains whether the archive workload can be optimized under the configured policy. The other controls govern different mechanisms. Exam clue. For low dedupe savings, inspect workload eligibility and policy thresholds before changing file system or quota controls. Question 26. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q025 confirms deduplication is functioning as designed for eligible media files. During a separate performance test, SMB multi-channel is disabled, even though both server and clients have supported RDMA-capable adapters, and large reads use a single non-RDMA connection. What is the smallest safe correction for the proven performance gap? Option A. Enable and verify SMB multi-channel so supported RDMA interfaces can establish SMB direct connections, then retest counters and throughput. Option B. Reformat the NTFS volume as REFS. Option C. Disable SMB signing and encryption globally. Option D. Delete the FSRM quota templates. The correct answer is A. Enable and verify SMB multi-channel so supported RDMA interfaces can establish SMB direct connections, then retest counters and throughput. The evidence identifies the SMB connection path, not volume format or FSRM. Enabling the supported multi-channel direct path and verifying negotiated connections directly addresses the bottleneck. Exam clue. Verify hardware and negotiated SMB paths before changing storage format or security posture. Question 27. Prevent or verify. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Deduplication and SMB performance now match their baselines. The team must detect drift across deduplication, FSRM, SMB, and the intended storage QoS assignment. Which control provides durable verification? Option A. Convert the volume between NTFS and REFS each quarter. Option B. Run a scheduled auditable validation that checks dedupe job/saving state, FSRM quota and file screen events, negotiated SMB direct/multi-channel state, and storage QoS policy assignment plus IO statistics against thresholds. Option C. Disable quotas whenever an alert fires. Option D. Use one successful throughput test as permanent evidence. The correct answer is B. Run a scheduled auditable validation that checks dedupe job/saving state, FSRM quota and file screen events, negotiated SMB direct/multi-channel state, and storage QoS policy assignment plus IO statistics against thresholds. A recurring cross-control validation checks the actual state and evidence for each independent modernization mechanism. Destructive conversion, Automatic control removal and one-time testing do not detect future drift. Exam clue. For a multi-control file service, validate each mechanism with its own evidence and preserve the results together. Packet 10. Enterprise Incident and Change Control Evidence. Contoso manages 40 ARC-enabled Windows Server machines across 2 sites. At 0215 UTC, an Azure Update Manager maintenance run applied a revised security baseline. Immediately afterward, expected Windows events stopped arriving in log analytics from 18 machines. The same machines remain connected in Azure Arc. AD replication and secure channel checks currently show healthy results, creating negative evidence against a directory failure. Question 28. Isolate. Choose the best answer. New evidence. The change and telemetry loss timestamps align. The DCR definition and log analytics destination have not yet been evaluated, and no corrective action has begun. Which evidence should be inspected first to isolate the monitoring path failure? Option A. Reset the AD secure channel on all 18 machines. Option B. Force AD replication across both sites. Option C. Compare AMA extension provisioning/service state per machine DCR associations and the last received heartbeat or expected event for an affected and unaffected machine. Option D. Recreate the maintenance configuration. The correct answer is C. Compare AMA extension provisioning/service state per machine DCR associations and the last received heartbeat or expected event for an affected and unaffected machine. The comparison isolates agent, association, and data arrival boundaries, while AD health is already established. It does not mutate the environment or assume the change object itself is corrupt. Exam clue. Use a healthy peer comparison across agent, DCRA, and last data evidence before changing the control plane. Question 29. Correct. Choose the best answer. New evidence. Q028 shows AMA is stopped on the 18 machines because the new baseline disabled its service. Each intended DCR association remains present and the workspace is healthy. What is the smallest safe correction? Option A. Re-onboard all machines to ARC and recreate every DCR. Option B. Reset AD secure channels and run repadmin/sync all. Option C. Delete all baseline and update manager history. Option D. Create a scoped exception or corrected baseline setting for the AMA service. Apply it to the affected machines through the governed configuration path, start or re-provision AMA as needed, and verify data resumes. The correct answer is D. Create a scoped exception or corrected baseline setting for the AMA service. Apply it to the affected machines through the governed configuration path, start or re-provision AMA as needed, and verify data resumes. The change disabled one required service. Correcting that governed setting and restoring AMA addresses the proven cause while preserving healthy ARC, DCR, workspace, and AD state. Exam clue. Roll back or exception the exact setting proven harmful, then verify the affected service and telemetry path. Question 30. Prevent or verify. Choose 2 answers. New evidence. Telemetry resumes and AD checks remain healthy. The organization wants to prevent unsupported baseline changes from silently breaking monitoring and to verify every maintenance run. Which 2 controls satisfy the requirements? Choose 2. Option A. Use policy or governed configuration compliance to require the intended AMA DCR state and alert on missing heartbeat or expected data. Option B. Duplicate every DCR and maintenance configuration. Option C. Add staged maintenance rings with pre-post checks and alert on update manager operation failures before broad rollout. Option D. Schedule secure channel resets after each update window. Option E. Collect every Windows event without filtering. The correct answer is A. Use policy or governed configuration compliance to require the intended AMA DCR state and alert on missing heartbeat or expected data. C. Add staged maintenance rings with pre-post checks and alert on Update Manager operation failures before broad rollout. Configuration compliance plus data freshness alerting protects the monitoring path. Staged rollout and pre-post operation checks constrain change impact and verify Update Manager outcomes. Exam clue. Pair monitoring state enforcement with staged change verification. Avoid resets or duplicate configuration as prevention. Review any misses by mechanism, scope, evidence, and verification. Use the explanations and exam clues to strengthen your decision process. You have completed AZ-802 Practice Exam Set 11. Thank you for studying with WebLizard Cert Lab.